new crew, welcome back to my channel. If you're new, my name is Cassandra. Today I am walking you guys through my 3 canning cookbooks that I own. We're gonna be talking about the good, what I like about these cookbooks, and my favorite recipes out of these. Not just my not just like my personal favorites, but my family's favorite recipes out of here are most canned recipes, used items, and all of those things. You guys have been watching me all year long put in the garden, start seeds, tend the garden, work through different issues throughout the garden, and then of course harvesting, canning, preserving, getting things put up and ready for winter, which is in full force here in Wisconsin. We are in the middle of a blizzard. It's lightening up a little bit right now, but it has been snowing all night and all day, and we do all of that work during the spring, summer, and fall so that we can just enjoy and relax all winter long. So we're gonna go through all 3 of my canning cookbooks today and just talk about all of those things. So let's hop right into it. This is my Mrs. Wage's new home canning guide. This is the first cookbook I ever got. I did not grow up knowing anything about gardening or canning. My grandpa had a really small, like 6x6 foot garden that I helped tend. After my Nana passed away, my grandpa just needed some more help. So I spent like most of my weekends, probably 2 weekends a month, up there with my grandpa, just helping him maintain his home and his yard, and tending the garden was one of those things. But it was nothing crazy. It was like a couple peppers and a couple tomato plants. I just did the weeding and, you know, things that he just couldn't do as he got a little bit older or just needed a little bit more help. And I was very happy to do it. That being said, once I married my husband, his family has been kind of low-key homesteading his entire life. They raised pigs, chickens. They had a 4-acre garden growing up that they tended by hand, and my husband was very well knowledgeable in these things. A life I was always very interested in, but I just never had until we moved back home from the army. We moved to the country, put a small garden in, and my father-in-law gifted me with this canning cookbook. He said this is his favorite cookbook. To this day, this is the only cookbook my in-laws use. They absolutely love it. They have no need for another cookbook. So if you're looking for a good place to start, this is it. But these are all recipe safe, good to go canning recipes. Of course, they have their own brand of like dump and go packets for Mrs. Wage's. My favorite Mrs. Wage packet for canning is their chili base. It's absolutely fantastic. All you need are your tomatoes, either store-bought or from the garden. You boil them down, peel the skins, and dump in your chili packet and basically let it simmer for a while, and you can it up, you water bath can it. Absolutely amazing. I love their chili base. They also have different options in pickles and salsas. I did use Mrs. Wage's salsa kits the first, I think, 2 years I canned, but we'll talk about what recipe I use for salsa now. Also a great option. Mrs. Wage's is what got me into canning because it's very basic, very easy, and their seasoning kits are really great. It's all water bath canning, so there's no like pressure canning involved. There's no pressure involved at all. And it's a really good place to start because it's just kind of getting you used to the basics and making sure that you're wiping your rims and how to put on your lids and put on your rings and just kind of like getting into the process. That being said, I only have 2 recipes that I use out of this cookbook regularly that are like a family favorite, and that is their sauerkraut and their kosher pickle recipe. I have people asking me all the time specifically for my pickle recipe because we go to like barbecues and family events all over, and I always bring jars of my canned pickles because that's just what you do. You have them on the shelf, you bring them, right? And people always ask me what my canning recipe is for the pickles, and I give them the kosher pickle recipe out of this cookbook. We've made pickles together on my channel so many times. Every single year we make pickles. It is one of my kids' favorites. We go through like 50 quarts of pickles a year. Anytime I need to pickle anything, any sort of vegetable, or even when we do like pickled fish or something like that, I will use the kosher pickle recipe out of this cookbook to pickle everything. It's my favorite. We use it for dilly beans. We used it in Brussels sprouts, pickling carrots and things this year. It's fantastic. It's a go-to. It's I honestly can't say enough things about it. It's probably like in my top 5 most reused canning recipe is the kosher pickle recipe out of this book. The sauerkraut recipe is on page 72 and my pickle recipe is on page 81. Alrighty, let's get on to book number 2. That is this Amish Canning and Preserving, How to Make Soups, Sauces, Pickles, Relishes, and More. It's 60 simple classic recipes. Now let me say, this is Amish canning, not like ball approved home preservation, nothing like that. A little bit of rubble canning going on in here. If you're not okay with that, this book probably isn't for you. There's a lot of recipes in here you probably wouldn't use. They water bath can soups in here and things like that. I know a lot of people don't like to do that. If that's not for you, that is totally okay. There are still water bath safe, good recipes in this when it comes to like jams and jellies and things like that. But those are pretty basic, so I wouldn't get this book just for the jams and jellies and whatnot. So if you're not into, if you are a follow the recipe by the book kind of canner, this just isn't gonna be for you. But I really like it. I got this as a Christmas gift. My husband got this from Tractor Supply. I've also seen this at Menards. I will try to link as many of these books down below as I can. I know I've tried to look this one up on Amazon before or like look it up online to be able to link it for people, and I've never been able to find it. So I don't know if this book got discontinued or just not available anymore, but I still really like it. There's fruit fillings in here and pie fillings, a bunch of different ways to can tomatoes, pickles, relishes, jams, jellies, sweetbreads, and of course our soups that we talked about. So that's just kind of the overview on this. But my most used recipes out of this book are the applesauce recipe. Once again, it's pretty basic, but I really like the applesauce recipe in here because I like the apple to water ratio when it comes to the consistency of the applesauce, specifically how it comes out of like the roaster pan once you can it and things. I like a little bit of a thicker applesauce, which is very similar. We have a neighbor down yonder who lives on like 80 acres down the road. He has an orchard on his property. We consulted him a lot over the last year because we put an orchard in on our property over the spring here. And oh no, my power's flickering in and out. This will be the first time that the power's gone out since our big power outage in April, where we were out power for 8 days. So I'm hoping that if the power goes out, the generator will just kick on like it's supposed to, but we'll see because we haven't actually had to test it since the power's been out. Okay, anyways, we're gonna continue like nothing's wrong. Where was I? He brought me some of his applesauce and he says he likes his applesauce chunky. He goes, I'm not a baby, I've still got my teeth, and I like my applesauce a little with some chunk in it. And I fall into that camp too. I like mine smooth, like I do like mine smoother than he likes his, but I like mine with like a little bit of grit left to it. So there's that. That's why I like this applesauce recipe. It's on page 7. One of my most reused canning recipes out of this book, and it is their hot sauce recipe. It is on page 20. I started making this recipe, I think 2 or 3 years ago, and it's because I had a bulk harvest of tomatoes and I was looking for different ways to can them up. When you have a, specifically for me, when I have a bulk year of any vegetable, I want to find new ways to can it and I want to try something new. This has been awesome, this hot sauce. My husband likes hot sauce, but I also use hot sauce in my salsa recipe that we'll talk about. I also use it in marinades and some Mexican dishes that we use, and it makes a really great gift. I've given my home canned hot sauce away for housewarming gifts, for birthday gifts, for Christmas gifts. It's really great. My sister specifically really loves the hot sauce, and it can be variant, right? Depending on what peppers you use, what tomatoes you use. So if you're looking to have a little bit of a variety of hot sauce, if you're a hot sauce person, you can use just this basic recipe here and then just switch up your peppers, switch up your tomatoes, and it'll still give you a different variation. Our favorite variation that I have found are mostly jalapenos with 1 or 2 cayenne peppers, depending on how hot the cayenne peppers end up coming that year, with a bunch of pineapple tomatoes, which are just delicious. that's been our favorite. But also a new recipe for me this year was the pear honey, which is on page 98 here. You can tell how loved a cookbook is by how sticky it is when you open it. But this pear honey was really great. Once again, this was me trying to find a different recipe. My grandma has an orchard on her property as well, and she has pear trees and apple trees. And she calls me over every year after she's had her fill and says, please come clear my trees for me. And I say, yes, absolutely, I will come clear your trees for you. This year, we had a lot of pears. We will do pears in our applesauce. We love that. We love the combination of the pears with our apples in our applesauce. It's really great. We ate a ton fresh, and then I think by the end of doing that, I still had probably 10 pounds of pears or so, and I put those in my crock pot, and we made this pear honey. A lot of the times when I'm looking for new recipes, it's because I have leftover produce that I'm looking to do something with. We've already canned all of our basics, and I'm just looking for something new to put on the canning shelf. That's how I found this pear honey. It is just simply pears, canned crushed pineapple, lemon juice, and sugar. Very simple. I had all these ingredients, very easy to throw together, and it's delicious. It is fantastic on toast with a little bit of cream cheese, or like a bagel with cream cheese and a little bit of this pear honey. Just gives that a little bit of sweetness. It's delicious. Once again, it's going to make a great gift. I canned a whole bunch of it, so it's gonna make a great Christmas gift for neighbors and things I plan on giving out. But those are my either most used or family favorite recipes out of this canning cookbook. Now, I think this is everybody's holy grail when it comes to canning cookbooks, and this is the Ball Complete Book of Home Preservation. I actually did not get this cookbook until last year. I already had a couple canning seasons under my belt, and I can't tell you how much I love this cookbook. Sometimes when I'm having a slow day, I will just sit down, the kids are watching a movie or something, I'll sit on the couch with them and I just scroll this cookbook because I always find something new or something that catches my eye in here. Very simple, very easy. I also like that it has pressure canning recipes in the back because I finally learned how to pressure can over the last couple of months. So I'm not very versed in the pressure canning section of this book. I'm hoping over this winter I can have time to kind of play around with it a little bit, but this is probably my most used cookbook. And obviously this is the biggest cookbook. I have the most recipes that I use out of here. I already talked about how earlier in my canning career, my canning journey, I used the Mrs. Wages salsa kits. Very great. I liked them. There's nothing wrong with them. However, they have a house salsa recipe in here that I absolutely love. I stopped using a lot of Mrs. Wages canning packets because my garden increased and I became a better gardener. So I got more produce. So I needed to find a canning recipe that used fresh tomatoes, fresh peppers, like all of those things, fresh onions, everything that I was growing. So as your journey grows, as your garden grows, as you become a better gardener, more proficient, you figure out what works well in your area, what doesn't work well in your area, you're gonna have more things coming in. And that's why this book came to me at like the perfect time. So their house salsa recipe is on page 208. I love it. We go through quarts and quarts and quarts of this all winter long. I'm the only one that will ever really like sit down and eat chips and salsa. My kids will typically, if like I pull it out, but it's not really something they will reach for. However, we use the house salsa like a rotel in cooking. So we go through a lot of it that way. We like to make a Mexican rice and I'll put some of our house salsa in it. We also will do like a queso chicken, or if we're making quesadillas or something, I'll put some of that in there. It still tastes really fresh like the day I picked it. I can't talk enough good things about this recipe. It's fantastic, and that is a recipe that uses a little bit of my homemade hot sauce, which I really like as well. Corn relish in here is on page 218. That was a new recipe for me this year. We grew corn for the first time, which is very exciting. We grew it in the permaculture orchard over this last summer. We only grew a little bit because it was our first year. We wanted to see how it would go, troubleshooting, all of those things. But I was able to take some of that corn, make some corn relish. It is fantastic on top of tacos. especially because I grocery shop once a month. If we're getting to the end of the month and we want to have tacos, but we don't have any like fresh produce left in the fridge, it's really great to go downstairs, grab a can of corn relish, which is like corn, peppers, and onions, and some cabbage that we grew. It's great, it's crunchy, it's fresh, it gives you that, and you don't really miss the fresh vegetables. So there's that. I really like the corn relish. I told my husband I was making this video and he told me you have to talk about the barbecue sauces. So I think last year, because I had all those extra tomatoes, I canned their 2-in-1 barbecue sauce recipe. It comes with regular barbecue sauce, and then you take half of that, you put it into a different pot, and you can make a sweet and sour. That's what I did because I wanted to try them both because it was my first year. We find, personally, that we like to take a can of each, pop them open, and we will use half of the original barbecue and half of the sweet and sour, and then use the other half in a different recipe. We like to mix them. I think it's better. My sauce is a little runny, but it's just because I used paste tomatoes to make it. I should have cooked it down a little bit more, but if I take a little bit of store-bought barbecue sauce and squirt it in there, it doesn't change the flavor much. It tastes pretty identical to Sweet Baby Ray's, which is what we like, but it makes it a little bit thicker. It gives it a little bit more body. So there's that. But I love this barbecue sauce. My husband does as well. Really great on the grill, really great in the oven, even great for dipping. If you are a barbecue sauce dipper for like chicken nuggets or things like that, I think it's really great for that too. We're really hitting on the condiments. These last, I have 2 more, both condiments. They're Oktoberfest beer mustard. Fantastic. I've never canned this myself, but my sister-in-law canned this. It's fantastic. It is so delicious. She gifted me one. Delicious. I've had this on my recipe. I have all the ingredients for it. It's something that I wanted to make for so long, but it just like keeps getting pushed back, or I keep forgetting about it. I think I bought all the stuff last year to give it out as a Christmas gift. It's like a 2 or 3 day process to make it, and I think that's why I keep like forgetting about it. Maybe over Vlogmas we will make it together, but man, oh man, I want to make it. It's so delicious, and it's just what you would imagine a beer mustard tastes like. I ate mine with a brat, a little bit of sauerkraut on top. It was so good, so I want to make this and get it on the pantry shelf. The last one is a chocolate raspberry sundae topper. Really great. I'm thinking this is probably something I will definitely make a lot of once all of the berries in the permaculture orchard are like prolific. We have more than we could ever eat, more than we could ever freeze, more than the kids could ever have, which might be a handful of years away. But when that happens, I'm sure we'll be making a lot of this chocolate raspberry sundae topper. It's everything you kind of want it to be. It's got a little bit of liqueur in it, the raspberries, a little bit of chocolate. It's just what you want it to be. It's great on top of like your sundaes, your ice cream, but I've also had this on top of like yogurts or in parfaits, things like that. Really, really great. So there's that. That is all of like my family favorites, canning recipes, things that we'd like to have on the canning shelf, things that we've tried that we absolutely love and want to get on the canning shelf, plus a little bit of a breakdown of all 3 of my canning cookbooks and why I like them and all the things. So thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today, talking about all of my favorite things. Let me know down below what are some of your family favorite recipes, and I will catch you guys in another Vlogmas video. Bye!